Welcome to Deep Analysis, a video series where we take an in-depth look at archetypes in the Pauper format. Today we're going to be taking a look at Heroic. We're going to be going over various card choices, flex spots in decks, tournament-winning deck lists, and more. Heroic is an ability keyword introduced in the Pharos block, which was released over 2013 to 2014, starting with the set Pharos, leading on to two supplementary sets, named Born of the Gods and Journey into Nyx respectively. Heroic has been around as an archetype in Pauper since. Heroic is an ability keyword introduced in Pharos. A creature with Heroic gives the controlling player powerful benefits every time they cast a spell that targets the creature. The most common Heroic ability is to put +1/+1 counters on the targeted creature. Heroic decks in Pauper utilise creatures with the Heroic ability alongside powerful enchantments to give their creatures massive power and toughness, aiming to win the game as quickly as possible, overwhelming the opponent with aggression before they can stabilise. Now, the most common creature we see in Heroic decks is named Lagona Band Trailblazer. A creature with 0 power, 4 toughness, a Centaur Scout only costing 1 white mana. This card has the deck's namesake ability, Heroic, and it reads, Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Lagona Band Trailblazer, put a +1/+1 counter on Lagona Band Trailblazer. Now, Lagona is a very desirable card to have in your opening hand in this deck. Being able to deploy this threat on turn 1 without fail makes it one of the best cards to start off a game with, especially when on the play. The 4 toughness is especially relevant, not only as it makes Lagona an excellent early game blocker, it also allows Lagona to not get killed by Lightning Bolt or other damage-based removal or board wipes, for example Fiery Cannonade and Breath Weapon. The next creature we're going to take a look at is Acroan Skyguard. Originally printed in Dawn of the Gods, Acroan Skyguard is a human creature costing 1 and a white mana, with base power and toughness 1/1. Whilst having a much lower stat line than Lagona Band Trailblazer, alongside the Heroic ability, Acroan Skyguard has flying, a very important keyword granting this deck some evasive capabilities within the Heroic mechanic. Not all lists play Acroan Skyguard, as some players prefer solely running creatures that cost 1 mana. However, Acroan Skyguard can be important as this deck's only answer to offense in the air, being able to handily block most flyers in the format, including Squadron Hawk and fairies such as Fairy Seer and Spellstutter Sprite. Next, we're going to be going over some of the other creatures commonly seen in Heroic lists. Although none of them have the Heroic keyword themselves, they're all individually powerful, especially when they're suited up with enchantments. First creature we're going to be taking a look at is Benevolent Bodyguard. Costing only 1 white mana, Benevolent Bodyguard is a cleric with a very crucial ability. At instant speed, Benevolent Bodyguard can sacrifice itself and grant another creature protection from a colour of your choice, granting your creatures the ability to dodge removal spells such as Snap or Cast Down, also providing a way to make a creature unblockable versus monocoloured decks. Next creature we're taking a gander at is Sacred Cat, a card that sees a lot of play in different Pauper decks. Sacred Cat is a cat with base power and toughness 1/1 and inherent lifelink, costing only 1 white mana. The most important ability on this card is the Embalm ability, which reads Embalm for a white mana. Exile this card from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie cat with no mana cost, Embalm only as a sorcery. Embalm effectively nullifies your opponent's removal, or certainly makes them hesitant to cast it, as they'll have to remove Sacred Cat twice. The Embalm ability also serves as card advantage, something which this deck lacks. Sacred Cat having lifelink natively makes matchups such as Burn or other red-based aggro decks a lot easier. Continuing the lifelink theme, we have Vault Scourge. Costing only 1 mana and a Phyrexian black, Vault Scourge is an artifact creature with flying and lifelink, making the life lost from paying the Phyrexian mana trivial to regain. Similar to Sacred Cat, being able to be deployed for only 1 mana and coming with inherent evasion and flying makes Vault Scourge an inherently powerful option to suit up with enchantments. Being a black card, Vault Scourge naturally dodges some of the best removal spells in the format like Snuff Out, although being an artifact makes it more vulnerable to common sideboard hate. The next creature we're taking a look at is Deathblade Elite, a soldier with base power and toughness 1/1, costing only 1 white mana. Deathblade Elite comes with the Provoke keyword, which reads, whenever this creature attacks, you may have target creature defending player controls untap and block if able. This ability serves as one of the only sources of removal in this deck, forcing a creature to block to remove it from the board. The second ability reads, for one colourless and a white, prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by Deathblade Elite this turn, which grants this creature inherent protection from blockers in case your opponent manages to block this creature favourably. The last creature we'll be taking a glance at is called Slumbering Keepguard, which was printed in the most recent set at the time, Wilds of Eldraine. Slumbering Keepguard is a human knight with base power and toughness 1/1 and only costing a white mana. Slumbering Keepguard provides very important card selection with his first ability, which reads, whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. His next ability, costing 2 and a white mana, reads, Slumbering Keepguard gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each enchantment you control. So even if another creature that you may have on the board is suited up with enchantments, Slumbering Keepguard can make himself large enough to push through for tons of damage. Other creatures commonly ran in heroic decks include Healer's Hawk, a creature with inherent invasion in flying and inherent lifelink, and Spirited Companion, a 1/1 creature which carries no keywords but is an enchantment, which will boost all that glitters in ethereal armor, and most importantly, Spirited Companion draws a card when it enters the battlefield. Given this deck has no card draw, it can be quite useful. There are a few other creatures printed at common with the heroic keyword, but we'll talk about them later. Now, mono-white variants of heroic play very few instants and sorceries, only filling 4 to 8 slots with instant spells that grant protection, the most common of these being Emerge Unscathed, which costs 1 white mana and reads, target creature you control gains protection from the colour of your choice until end of turn. This card also has the rebound ability. If you cast this spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast this card from exile without paying its mana cost. Which means, if you use this card on your opponent's turn, say to dodge removal or block an attacker with impunity, on your upkeep it will cast again from exile, effectively giving your creature unblockable and triggering heroic twice. Other cards that are played in this slot, including Karametra's Blessing, granting +2/+2 for 1 white mana. However, if it's targeting an enchanted or an enchantment creature, which almost all of your creatures will be, it will also grant them indestructible and hexproof. Other cards that do incredibly similar things to these include God's Willing, Blacksmith's Skill, and Lauren's Escape, granting protection for very little mana. Now onto the enchantments. This deck plays lots of auras, granting protection and keyword to our creatures while also triggering the heroic keyword. First up we have Cartouche of Solidarity, an aura costing 1 white mana, which grants the enchanted creature +1/+1 and first strike. When Cartouche of Solidarity enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 warrior token with Vigilance. This second ability is the most crucial, as this deck's game plan revolves around powering up one creature. The deck is extremely weak to edict effects such as Diabolic Edict, Chainer's Edict, or any cards that force the player to sacrifice creatures. The 1/1 token this aura creates serves as a way to play around edict effects, as sacrificing a token is obviously much more preferable than sacrificing your Sacred Cat that's got 10 enchantments on it. Next up is Sentinel's Eyes, another 1 mana aura, granting the enchanted creature +1/+1 and the Vigilance keyword. Similar to Sacred Cat, this card can serve as card advantage, being able to be cast from the graveyard with its escape ability. Hyena Umbra is another 1 mana aura granting first strike and +1/+1, and it also gives the enchanted creature totem armor, which saves it from destruction once. Next we have one of the most powerful auras in this deck, Ethereal Armor, a 1 mana aura granting the enchanted creature first strike and a whopping +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. This aura makes your creatures very big, very quickly. Next, we have All That Glitters, another very powerful aura downshifted to common rarity in Commander Masters, which was printed in 2023. All That Glitters functions similarly to Ethereal Armor, granting the enchanted creature +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment you control. This downshift, alongside Slumbering Keepguard, has brought mono-white heroic back into meta relevancy. The final aura to speak about is Benevolent Blessing. Costing 1 and a white, this aura has flash, so it can be cast at instant speed. This aura grants the enchanted creature a permanent protection against your colour of your choice, which can single-handedly win the game against mono-coloured decks. This card also states that, quote, this effect doesn't remove auras and equipment you control that are already attached to it, which means that if you have to give the enchanted creature protection from white, all of your auras will stay on. Most mono-white decks exclusively play basic planes for consistency, but some may play Secluded Step for the cycling ability late game when they don't want to top deck a land, or they may play Ancient Den to boost All That Glitters. On to popular sideboard choices. First up, we have Lifelink and Spirit Link, 1 mana auras granting the enchanted creature Lifelink. One thing to note is that Spirit Link doesn't grant the keyword Lifelink, so it will stack with creatures like Sacred Cat or Vault Scourge that have Lifelink natively, doubling the life you gain. Next we have the Acolytes, Crimson Acolyte and Obsidian Acolyte. Both of these cards cost 1 and a white, and have base power and toughness 1/1 and are clerics, offering protection from their namesake colours, red and black respectively. Against mono-coloured decks, one of these acolytes suited up with auras can win the game in short order. Next, we have Standard Bearer. Costing 1 and a white, this 1/1 flag bearer has an amazing ability which reads, while an opponent is choosing targets as part of casting a spell they control or activating an ability they control, that player must choose at least 1 flag bearer on the battlefield if able. Which means that if your opponent wants to use removal on your creature, they have to target the standard bearer first. This card is also sided in for the Mirror Match or Boggles or other enchantment decks, which will force your opponent to equip their auras to your standard bearer. More common sideboard cards include Journey to Nowhere, which is the premier white removal spell in the Pauper format, being able to exile any targetable creature, also seen as Celestial Flare and Sunlance, which are other types of removal in white. Relic of Progenitus and Tormod's Crypt are a pair of cards that see a lot of play in many sideboards, providing ways to exile graveyards. Finally, we have Beckon Apparition, an instant that exiles a card from a graveyard, providing important graveyard hate alongside Tormod's Crypt and Relic. Beckon Apparition also creates a 1/1 spirit token, which can be used to play around edict effects on the stack. Now here's a few deck lists that have done well in recent tournaments and challenges. Here's the first list, which got second place on an MTGO challenge on the 1st of November. Things to note in this list that they're playing Ancient Den, the artifact land which boosts all that glitters, alongside 2 Spirit Link in the main board to improve the burn matchup, I assume. The second deck list, which got top 16 at a tournament called the Fujet Champ 159, which had 46 players. Things to note about this deck list is that they're only playing 2 Karametra's Blessing as protection spells, to make room for more auras. Cards of note in the sideboard are Shield of Duty and Reason and Mask of Law and Grace, which grant protection from specific colours. This third list got top 8 at a tournament called Tropical Pauper 155. Again, this list is only running 2 instant speed protection spells, and cards to take note of in the sideboard here include Shattering Blow to hit artifacts, and Holy Light, which is a sort of white board wipe. Next, we'll be taking a look at Boros variants of Heroic, which use red as the secondary colour. This deck saw the most experimentation with the recent downshift of 10th District Legionnaire, which was downshifted to common in Double Masters 2022. 10th District Legionnaire is a 2/2 with haste, costing a red and a white mana. It gets +1/+1 whenever it's targeted by a spell, just like Aquaman Skyguard and Lagona. Additionally, 10th District Legionnaire scries 1 when he's targeted. Boros variants of Heroic tend to make use of instants and sorceries rather than enchantments. Cards such as Defiant Strike, Guided Strike, Blazing Crescendo and Shelter are used as buff and protection spells that grant advantage, either drawing or exiling a card on resolution, which, when combined with 10th District Legionnaire's Scry 1, allows for great card selection, as the Scry 1 to draw 1 keeps your hand full as you buff your creatures, stopping you from drawing dead. Here's an example list, packed full of instants and sorceries that can push through damage or grant protection. Boros variants tend to have a more defensive or reactive playstyle, using its instants to protect and defend its creatures rather than racing for a kill, but it can reliably do both. This has been a look at Heroic decks in Pauper. Please give a like and subscribe if you like this series. And maybe leave a comment if you want us to do a little deep dive on some different decks. See you next time. Goodbye.